Hi everyone, this is Gaurav. Welcome to my learning channels. Today we will be taking a look at various data types in Python. Today's information is going to be very basic and foundational in nature. So if you already know all the different data types in Python, you can go ahead, feel free to skip that. However, I would say that a little bit of a revision never hurts. So to get started with, the first three data types are string, integer, and float. Now these are the ones which are kind of fairly intuitive in nature, and I'm pretty sure that if you have done any kind of a computer courses, then you might have read through about these multiple times. So let's take an example. You have, first of all, string. So way to define string, and easiest way to define string is kind of just assigning some sort of a value. So let's say you have var1, which is your first variable that you would like to define as a string. So way to do that is just write the name of the variable, type the values that you would like to assign it, and then let's see what comes out of it. So first of all, you can see that the type for var1 is string str. Now you can also take a look at the value that has been assigned, which is I am learning Python in this case. Similarly, you can go ahead and do the similar exercise for integer as well. Integer, as the name suggests, is assigning any kind of integer to a variable value, and float is your any kind of a decimal point. You can do any kind of a mathematical calculation on top of integer. So let's say you have var2 in this case. As you can see that it's defined as an integer, but you can go ahead and do a mathematical calculation on top of it, and that will be the value will be reassigned, so you will have 23 in this case. However, you cannot do the same thing as a part of a string. If you have to do any kind of a mathematical calculation, one option is that you convert everything into ASCII, or if you want to go ahead and append something, you can go use something like append function, which we'll cover a little later on. Then the next three types are list, tuple, and set. Now out of these three, list is something that you will be using quite a bit as you move forward. So it's kind of important to understand this thoroughly. However, I mean, the tuple and set is kind of very much extension of list itself. So it's fairly easy to understand them once you understand list. So get started with, the list is basically a collection of data which are mutable. So you can make a collection of your strings, your integers or a float, and you can make all of these as a part of one variable, and you can call them as a list. So way to define list is basically you put all the values in a big bracket, as I've done here, and then everything will be assigned to one particular variable, which is var4 in this case. So let's take a look what happens when you do that. As you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different elements have been assigned to var4 in this case. Now when you will see, take a look at var4, the type, then you will see that it's going to be a list. Let's also take a look at length for var4, and you can see that it's 5 because you have 5 different elements as a part of this list. Now you can extract any part of a list by using their index, which in this case, let's say that I want to extract the first element. So in that case, I will go ahead and put it as a 0. So in a list, the assignment always starts from 0. So you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So the first element here is 1. Index for the same is going to be 0. So I can go ahead and extract that, and it will give you the value of 1. Now I can go ahead and reassign the values as well. So let's say that now I don't want this list to look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but rather I would want to look at like 11 and then 2, 3, 4, 5. I can go ahead and easily do that as well. And I can take a look at the new values for var4. In this case, as you can see that the first element has been changed and it has been converted to 11 now. So that's why it's called mutable. You can go ahead and mutate it or change any part of a list. You can add values as well. So if you want to go ahead and add one of the element in the end, so you can do that easily as well. Let's say I want to add 6. So I can do that, and now you will see that overall just one more element, 6, has been assigned as a part of this particular list. One of the important thing to note here is that that it's very much possible that as you go through all the tutorials, you might tend to forget some of the key functions. Like for instance, you have append here, you have length here, you have type here, and then you will keep on learning 5, 6, 7 different functions as you move forward. So sometimes you tend to forget, and if you do forget, all you have to do is just like press tab, and then you can see all the different values, all the different functions that you can use as a part of that particular variable. So in this case, if given the fact that var4 has been assigned as a list, these are the different options of the different functions that you can use as a part of list. The reason why I'm telling you this is because very soon enough, you will see that things will start to get overwhelming, and there's quite a few things that you will have to remember. So worry not, it's totally fine to forget these things. you have Google, or you can always press tab and then take a look at some of these key functions, and then afterwards see what are the key functionalities that is available as a part of that particular data type. The next one is set. Set is essentially a collection of data points which does not have any duplicates. So let's try to assign something as a set and let's see what happens. Let's say you have var5. The way to assign set is going to be using curly braces, and then afterwards you can give whatever value that you want to give. In this case, let's say that we want to do 1, 1, 1. So 1 has been repeated 3 times, and then you have 2, 2, and 4. Let's see what happens. Now, as you can see that when I assigned it, then var5 had like 6 different elements. 1 was repeated 3 times. However, now that I'm printing out var5, I can see that there are just 3 elements. And the reason behind is all duplicate have been removed. So that's the speciality of a set, that whatever that you assign as a value as a part of this list, the duplicates will always be removed. Now, the question is that where am I going to use set and where I'm going to use list? So list is something that you'll be probably using quite a bit whenever you have any kind of a data science exercise. But the way, one of the key functionality, key use case that I can think of for set is if you have a list and you have a duplicate in it, then you can quickly get rid of that by simply just converting it to a set, and by default, all the duplicates will be removed. So you can just now convert it back to your list. Now, with that said, there are 50 different ways of doing the same thing. So there are like other functions as well that you can use that we will be taking a look at later on to remove any kind of a duplicate. So some of the basic functionalities like type and length remains exactly the same as you have for list. So I'm not going to mention that, but let's take a look at something interesting here. Let's say that what I did earlier for list was that if I wanted to pick the first element, then I went ahead and gave the index for that element, which was 0 in this case. Let's try to do the same thing here and let's see what happens. Now, as you can see that it says it errors out. It says that set object is not subscriptable. So what's really happening is that once it is kind of removing all the duplicates, it's not giving any kind of it's not allowing you to do any kind of a subscription. So as a part of a set, you cannot do any kind of a normal subscription. However, there is a very easy hack for this. All you have to do is just essentially just convert it into a list temporarily, and then you can take a look at the first element. That's one way of doing it, and this does not impact your original value. So original value variable remains exactly the same. It's still a set itself. It has not converted to a list. So that's one way of doing it. There are other ways as well. You can use iterables, but we will discuss that as we move forward. Now let's try to add certain elements. So let's say that I want to go ahead and add 2 here. So you see that now the system is letting me add something. So it is mutable. You can see that 2 has been added, but it's not letting me do any kind of a subscription. And one more thing to note here is that you had 1, 2, and 4, but 2 was repeated twice. So I already had 2 as a part of my original variable. If I added 2, it did not change anything, but let's try to add anything else. Let's say I want to add anything like 3, then it will go ahead and add 3 as well. So this is an important thing to note here, that even if you're adding more elements to the set, the final value that will be assigned, it will always remove any kind of a duplication. The next one is a tuple. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing it right. That's how I pronounce it. But if it is pronounced as tuple, feel free to do that. So let's do the same exercise as we did for set, which is you have few elements which are duplicated and few elements which are like unique, which is 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3 in this case. But the way to define that as a tuple is going to be that you add a small bracket. So let's see what happens if you do that. As you can see that the duplicates have not been removed. Pretty much everything has remained exactly the same. So it seems like it's kind of very similar to what you have as a part of a list. However, let's take a look at some of the other things, some of the other functionalities that we had as a part of a list. So first and foremost, let's try to see what is the type for var6 in this case. And as you will see that it's going to be a tuple. Now, if you try to do any kind of extraction, can I go ahead and do that? Let's say that if I want to take a look at the first element, which is like the 0th index, sorry, apologies, I think it's var6, then I can still go ahead and do that. So set was not allowing me, it was not allowing any kind of a subscription, but as a part of a tuple, you can go ahead and do that. However, there's an interesting thing. As a part of a list, you were able to edit that. So as if you remember, we did edit the first element as 11. Let's try to do the same thing here. Let's change the first element and convert it into 11. So you will see that it does not support item assignment. So what happens is that once you define something as a tuple, it's not gonna let you change any of the individual elements. What you can do though is that you can go ahead and convert the whole thing. So you can delete var6, you can change var6 from 1 1 2 to 3 to like 4 5 6, but you cannot pick one element and mutate it. So one of the key usage for a tuple is going to be that, let's say that you're writing a program and you want to kind of assign certain set of values as a part of your particular variable. But at the same time, you want to make sure that as the program progresses, the value does not change. You would like it to be exactly constant. So at that point in time, you can use something like a tuple. However, with that said, there are better ways. Once you will learn a little bit about the classes, there are better ways of solving the same problem. So we will take a look at that as we move forward. The next one is a dictionary, and this is something, again, something that you will be using quite a bit as a part of your data science journey. But let's first of all define a variable as a dictionary. So the way to define it is like, you first of all, I have written some text here. Let's try to quickly run this and let's see what happens. So as you can see that in var7, you have two different parts. You have name and then you have Gaurav. And similarly, you have three sub parts of it. So you have name Gaurav, money 10, and then marks 88.6. So the first element here is called key, and then the second element is called value. So you have these key value pairs that has been assigned multiple times. So you have like three different key value pairs as a part of this dictionary. Now, one of the important thing to note here is that as you would see that I have three different type of key value pairs. The first one is taking the value of characters, the second one is taking the value of integers, and the third one is taking the value of a float here. So you can go ahead and do that as a part of a dictionary. Now the question is that, where am I supposed to use this? So imagine that you're working on a credit card information or any kind of a banking information. Now you're taking a look at a customer attribute which has two different attributes. So you can have name, address, you can have age, income, FICO scores, and whatnot. And there are like 200 different attributes. Now, if you want to go ahead and take a look at one particular attribute, let's say, for instance, that I would like to know for this particular entity, what is the name? So one way to do that is going to be that I just remember the name of the key associated, and I can see that it's going to be Gaurav. Now, you will say that, well, I can do the same thing in the list as well. All I have to do is just remember the index. Now imagine that if you have 200 different elements, then you will have to remember exactly which spot was for that particular data point that you have to look for. So you will have to kind of remember, where does name stand? It's like a 32nd spot, or is it like a 34th spot? But in this case, you don't have to remember that. You can name these things. You can put the keys in a way so that it is intuitive to you, and then afterwards you can go ahead and use it and reuse it. Anything which is part of a dictionary is immutable, so you can go ahead and change that. So let's say that initially we assigned var7 as a name Gaurav. Now I don't want this to be Gaurav anymore, so I would like to go ahead and change it to Saurav. You can do that, and as you will see that now the overall key value pairs have changed. The name is Saurav now in this case, and pretty much everything else remains the same. Now, as a part of a dictionary, you can also add some new elements. So let's say, for instance, you have 3 elements right now, but now I would like to add another dimension, which is the height of this person. So let's say, for instance, my height is going to be 188 centimeter. So I can go ahead and do that, and I can go ahead and type out the entire var7 again. So as you can see that now you have 4 different elements and height has been added. So you can do all of these basic functionalities. You can add things, you can edit things. And as I said earlier, whenever you get confused, you can always go ahead and sort of take a look at what are the different options available by pressing simply tab. The next data type is called Boolean. So as a part of a Boolean, you have, as the name suggests, you have true and false. This is something that you can potentially use as a part of, your if then else conditions and the different kind of conditions that you have. But personally, I never use it. But let's just go ahead and quickly take a look, right? So let's say that if you have to design something as a Boolean, the way to do that is going to be var81 is equal to false, let's say, and I can always see that the variable value has been assigned as a false, and I can also take a look at what is the type in this case. So as you can see that it's going to be Boolean. The next one is a range. So the range is essentially something, let me just take care of this. Remind me later, apologies for that. So the next one is a range. This is also something that you will be using quite frequently as a part of your data science journey. So let's take a look, first of all, what happens if I assign something as a range. So A has a range 4, and when I type A, which is like I'm trying to just like print out whatever that is part of A, then you can see that it's called range of 0 and 4. Now, what does that mean? So let's try to type out everything that you have as a part of A. So I have written a simple for statement. What it is doing here is that it's picking one element at a time, and it's simply going and printing out everything one by one, right? So let's try to do and see what happens. When you do that, then you will see that it just went to the first element, 0, 0, then the second element, which is 1, 2, 3, and so on. So essentially what's really happening here is that once you defined A as a range of 4, then it gave you like 4 different elements, which was 0, 1, 2, 3. Now you don't necessarily have to start always from 0. You can always start from 2 or any other values. So you can always define the lower range and the upper range of a range variable. So let's try to do that and see what happens. Now, important thing to note here is that when you put something as a 2 in the range, or you define a lower range of this range, then that will be included as a part of your value. But 4 is not included, so it's always going to be the less than 4. So that is an important thing to note here, is that the lower range will be included, the upper range will not be included. So that's pretty much it for range. And these are some of the basic data types. I guess some of the key takeaway here is going to be that apart from some of the basic ones like string, integer, or float, you should definitely pay special attention to things like dictionary, list, and range. There are some other data types as well, like byte, byte array. So you can definitely take a look at those. They might be important from the interview perspective, but you're not going to use it as a part of a data science. So that's pretty much it for today. And after this, we are going to take a look at some of the other functionalities that we have in Python, which is your loops and the iterables. But if you haven't liked and subscribed already, please go ahead and do so. So thank you so much and have a great day.